Hey guys, I'm just gonna wait a little while and see how things go. Let me know if the music is too loud or if I need to turn it down. I'm trying to manage things a little bit better here. Hey guys. I know, I missed you guys. Hey! Hi everybody. Wow, there's so many people saying things. I can't keep up. Yeah, things have been really crazy. Hey! Hi everybody. Yeah, so things have been a little crazy and I'm gonna kind of update you guys on what's going on. I know, I'm really sorry. Hi guys. Yes, I'm back. It's been wild. I'm gonna try and make this, well, I'll just wait a little bit. Oh, I missed you guys too. Hey Spartan, Sub-Zero Jones, Linus. It's been crazy. Yes, I will be more active from now on. Like I said, I have so much to update you guys on. It's been crazy. No! I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm back. It's crazy. Yeah, listen later, guys. Sorry if some of you are going to work right now. This was pretty much the only time that I could really stream, because again, my work schedule is really crazy. For those of you who were able to follow me on Twitter and check my Twitter update, you guys would know that my work schedule has changed, and it's been really crazy trying to adjust to that schedule because I've been working from 3 a.m. to noon for the longest time. And now they have me on 1 a.m. to 9 a.m., which is, if you've been working one schedule for like 4 years, or 3 years rather for me, switching that off to a 2-hour mark up is really crazy. Hi, Sweet Pea. For those of you who don't know, aw, thanks, Gage. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I am a recent parent. I have adopted a dog and a cat, and Lily is being so nosy and wanting to know what it is I'm doing. She's over by my chair right now. I'll have to show you guys. I'll have to post pictures on Twitter later so you guys can see her, but she's a sweetie pie. Yeah. And she's licking my feet. What is it? What do you want? What do you want, you sweetie? Oh, what's the matter? Yeah, so, she is a little bit spoiled. Just recently, she's gonna flop by my chair. Okay, that works. Whatever. But yeah, so I had to put my cat up because she is super loud and super whiny, even though I just gave her all the attention in the world not even 10 minutes ago. Typical cat, you know, behavior, right? Well, anyway, so I've had to put Pluto away because she's just a little bit out of control, and I can't really stream with her yowling in the background. At least with Lily, she's really quiet and chill. So, but yeah, so I am a recent parent of 2 rescue animals. I'm so happy for them. They're both babies. They're both, well, Pluto is 5 months old. She's about to turn 6. And Lily, she's 8 months old. And now she's wandering around. I don't know what she's doing. No, it's not my cat. It's my dog. My dog was just licking my foot for some reason. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so with the work situation, that's what's been going down. And it's been really crazy adjusting to those hours. And then we lost a director. So it was literally just me and not my assistant director anymore. Like in the morning show, we used to have 2 directors, me and then my assistant. And when that happened, I ended up having to direct all the shows by myself. And for those of you who know anything about morning television usually goes for about 2.5 hours for your local news stations. So we have a 4:30, a 5, a 6 o'clock show that goes all the way to 7 o'clock in the morning. So I was having to direct all those shows by myself. And so on top of that, and having to do GMA cut-ins live through New York from 7 to 9, it was really exhausting. So I'd come home and I would be so burnt out, and I'd come home and sleep for like ever, basically. And then I would get up and edit for a little while. And basically I've been recording a lot of stuff for you guys, and I've been editing little by little every day. It's just that you guys know I'm a perfectionist. You guys know that I would never give you anything that I wasn't happy with, because your input is really what's important to me. Yes, I love making videos. Yes, I love editing. Yes, I love doing all those things. But at the end of the day, if you guys aren't happy with the product that I come out with, then it's kind of a moot thing, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I want to be happy with the product that I give, because if I'm not happy with it, I don't think you will. And if you're not happy, then I'm not happy. And it's just a really big, vicious cycle of unhappiness, if you know what I'm saying. So I've been recording a lot of stuff. I've been doing a lot of stuff. It's just a matter of putting it all together. I don't know, it's been really stressful, and I'm having to find other ways to unwind and kind of deal with things that are going on right now. It's been really hard having to adjust to everything, and I told myself I wasn't gonna cry, so I'm not gonna cry, guys. I'm not gonna cry, but I am really happy to be back. I will be updating regularly. I know people were worried that the channel had died. It hadn't, and I really should have just like updated you guys more frequently and let you guys know what was going on. I just didn't want to throw my personal shit out there for the internet to kind of judge and be like, oh, well, you know, you're just doing this because you want attention. Was that you, Lily? Huh? What's going on? No one's here. No one's bothering you. But yeah, so, yeah, you know, alternate supply, I would hire people to help me with this, but I don't have the funds for that kind of thing right now. For those of you who know, I'm having to basically work full-time on top of having a part-time job and doing what I can to take care of myself mentally and emotionally and physically, as well as taking care of my 2 animals. And I also have a roommate now, and she just recently she just recently got a job. She was going through some shit, so I told her to just come move in with me and deal with her own stuff. And Jonathan, that's actually one of the stories that I've been working on and editing and putting together. No End House 3. Keep constantly wondering where my dog is. She's so big, like I shouldn't be misplacing her like this. Lily! Oh, are you going to bed? Lily. Lily, you going to bed? Are you going to bed? It's too early. Please hold, guys. I need to give my dog something to do because she hears me talking and not paying attention to her, so she is bored. So if you guys will hold on for like 2 seconds, I'm gonna get her a bone so she can chill the fuck out. All right, you bored animal. I know. Come on. Sit down. Okay, the puppy has been sufficiently occupied with her bone. Yes, yes. That is the dog mom life, having to deal with my child. Yeah, so it's been great. Adopting a dog and a cat has been really therapeutic for me, especially with the last few days. It's just been really crazy. Yeah, so now that I've found a kind of happy medium, like a happy little level of something that makes sense, I don't know. I'm gonna get back into regularly editing and stuff, and I'm gonna resume Higurashi. I know some people have been huge fans of that, and I'm a huge fan, so I really need to sit down and finish that. Should I do puppy vlogs? I don't know. It's I probably should. No, it's Zelda. I'm back. I'm back. Yeah, so for those of you who like have been really supportive of me and really understanding and have been waiting so patiently for me, thank you so much. I really don't know what else to tell you other than thank you, because, well, I really don't have any more words other than thank you. Everyone has been, I read your comments all the time. I really do. And I try to reply to all the comments that I can when I can. But again, when everyone's asleep, I'm awake, and when everyone's awake, I'm asleep. So it's a little bit more difficult to maintain the schedule that I used to have. But all I can really say is thank you. Thank you so much for all of your support and for your patience and understanding, and for just being there for me. And yeah, that's something that I probably should update you guys on. Great. And of course my phone rings. I'll answer that later. So what was I gonna say? Oh, okay. For those of you who didn't get the update last time when I did the stream before, I've lowered my face reveal sub count down to 50,000. Yes, the face reveal is still gonna be at 50K. Instead of 100K. I feel like 100K was a bit of a stretch. So at 50K, I will reveal my face to you guys, and just kind of be like, hey guys, this is an update, yada yada yada, that's so on and so forth, kind of thing. But yeah, so with that being said, I don't really have too much more to say on that. I just kind of wanted to No, I didn't, Zelda, because if I got up to 50K while I was inactive, I still would have done a face reveal. Thank you very much, everyone. So yeah, I don't really have any stories lined up at the moment to read to you guys. Is there anything in particular that you would like me to read? I'm not going to stream for very long today because I have to go to work tomorrow in the morning at 1 a.m. and I need to still do some things around the house, tend to my animals. Well, other than Lily, she's completely content with her bone. But I do need to take her out later, and I need to eat. I didn't eat because I'm a very sad human being. I had breakfast. I had like a bowl of cereal at 9 o'clock this morning after I took my animals out. But I haven't had lunch yet. I'm kind of starving. Let's be real. A Wendigo story? Should do one now. Any stories for the future? Cooking instructions. Do I have any original fiction that I'd read? Well, I don't have a whole lot of original stories that I would read. I mean, I could read you stuff that I've written, but they're not really horror related. They're kind of just, you know, sci-fi, urban fantasy kind of things that I've written. I've been writing a lot. I've been doing a lot of writing lately. Like I said, it's mostly science fiction or urban fantasy. It's not very horror related. I don't really consider myself a very good horror like writer. I've kind of dabbled in mystery and drama, thrillers a little bit, but not a whole lot regarding, you know, horror. And I feel like I need to take some classes or something in writing horror stories. Aw, hi Psy Productions. Read my emails. God, it'd be so much to read. Well, Escape Room Story by Color Blindness. The Pastel Man recording. Okay, Alright, let me look up these stories that you guys are talking about, because they seem really interesting. So, someone mentioned the Wendigo story. There's so many, like... Is there one in particular that you guys wanted me to read? Because... Is it this one on Creepypasta? Oh, this is kind of long. Okay, I'll put that on there. And what was the other one? The other one was... You know, people have asked me to do SCPs, and I totally would be down for that, actually. Let's see. The Pastel Man recording. Okay, so Pastel Man recording. Oh, this is a long one. Yeah, this is a long one. Oh God, if I read this one. If I read this one, this might be the only story I read. Kind of long. I've even seen some video clips where it took like 40 minutes for someone to read this story. And then what'd you say? The escape room? The escape room. Let's see. My dog is just going to town on that fucking bone. I can hear her. Let's see. The escape room by Color Blindness. I don't see it. Maybe I'm looking it up wrong. Yeah, I still remember you. Color Blindness did an escape room story. Oh, Colored Blindness. Okay, Colored Blindness escape room. There's a story called A Room. There's also one called The Escape. Okay, there's The Great Escape, The Secret Room, The Crooked Room, The Mind Game. It seems a little... I don't know. I don't think I'm finding the right story. Great Escape, The Secret Room. Good lord, this story is long too. Alright. Hello. Baraska? Good lord, that's such a long story. Oh, thanks, Carly. Oh, snap. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kitten Mothership. And thank you Within the Shyness, excuse me. You guys want me to... Everyone keeps saying they want me to read Back Against the Wall, which is a story that I wrote and read a long time ago on the channel. Instead of reading that one, I guess I could just play the video if you want. Actually, that might not be a bad idea. That could give me a chance to find some stuff for you guys. So just give me 1 second while I find the video. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing fine or doing well on this Sunday afternoon. I am very excited to be doing videos again, because Lord knows it's been a minute. Let's see. One shots in here. There's Blood Game, the Eastwood Clan. Alright. I need to locate some things that may not be here. Alright. You guys chillax for a second. I'm gonna go find my external drive with all my stuff on it, because it's currently not hooked up to my computer, so please hold. Really? You devour that bone? Really? Good grief. Are a glutton. I'm giving you another one. Nope. Nope, don't look at me. Not doing it. That bone was big enough. Why are you going to the kitchen? I'm not giving you another one. Look, I'll give you green. That's it. Stop. Sit. Down. 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 Getting a green, that's it. Where else? Guys, I gave her this big ass bone and she just devoured it. Good grief. I have no words. No words. Hey, Jack. Hi, Empoleon. Okay. I think I found it. Alright, so what we'll do... Oops. Wrong folder, guys. There we go. Where is stuff? I don't know where stuff is. Now, where was that story? There we go. Alright, I found it. Oops. No, no, no. Do not do that. Alright, 1 second, guys. Hopefully. YouTube? Oh, no. Okay. Well. It seems that the stream has frozen. So, let me do something real quick. Let's restore this. Alright, come on. Come on. Don't do this to me. You gonna work? There we go. Alright, sorry about that, guys. The stream decided it wanted to go kaput for whatever reason. I don't know. It was weird. I was not prepared. Yeah, so, sorry about that. Good grief. Yeah, so my stream... Yeah, my background music stopped because I turned it off because I think it was just like, me. Don't know what happened. Google Chrome decided to take a big fat shit on everything. So, you, Miss Ma'am, down, down. There you go. Alright, so I found the video. I just gotta paste it over here. I will go ahead and play this, and in the meantime, I will look for something to read. I do kind of like this, this Pastel Man story, though. It looks kind of cool. It's kind of long. If I do read this, though, it'll be the only story I actually read live, and then I do have to go, because like I said, I have to deal with my animals and stuff. Or I could read The Secret Room. I know, I think Mr. Creepypasta read this, or Creeps McPasta did. I'm not 100% sure. Or I could read A Room. So, it just depends. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get this started for you guys. In the meantime... I know, right? I don't know where Raptor is. Is he even here around? Let me look. He might be. Let's see. Crafter, are you on? He is idle, so no, he is not available at the moment. But if he does come on, I'll poke at him and see what he wants to do. Yeah, Candy. It was a lot of work-related things as to why I've been gone. Hey, Nightmare Files. Hi, how's it going? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and play Back Against the Wall. Everyone's been asking for that, and while I'm playing that, I will kind of skim through some stuff on some of these stories and see which one would be really good for me to read. So, all right, with that being said, let me know in the chat if the audio is okay. I'm going to mute my mic so that you can focus on hearing the story. So, yeah. All right, here we go.
I have been careless. Terribly so. Opening my eyes slowly, I felt my vision adjusting as quickly as it could while I stared at the filthy, dusty floor that was decorated with flecks of my blood. Scuff marks from shoes and discarded bits of my belongings were haphazardly strewn across the ground by my feet. They were close enough that, had I the energy, I could have easily towed the items with the tips of my sneakers and been none the wiser. Throat parched from lack of water, a rasping cough escaped from my mouth, causing a burning sensation to tear through the back of my throat to the point that I could almost taste the bile and blood attempting to rise up from my esophagus. A mirthless grin touched the corners of my cracked and dried lips. It was sad, really. Even if I wanted to ease the chapped state that they were in, there wasn't enough moisture in my body to even create the necessary amount of spit that was needed to do so. A bitter chuckle rattled against my chest, causing a horrible coughing fit to ensue. Leaning forward, I felt the shackles tearing into my flesh at my wrists, while the chains jangled in response to the hold they had on me. No matter how much I pulled, the restraints were holding me securely against the brick wall at my back. I only succeeded in stirring up more dust to float around me, bits of the brick gathering at my feet.
You are a fool.
The loud drumming of my own heartbeat reverberated in my ears. No. I blinked, eyes dried out, and yet I was unable to form tears to ease their pain. I am alive.
But you wish you were dead, don't you?
The sound was similar to a gong ringing in my ears this time, a mixture of my own heartbeat and the sound of a warning bell tearing through my mind. It repeated itself over and over again as the dark voice of question began to laugh bitterly inside of my mind. He had always been amused with my struggles, my need to survive and continue on my journey of life. The entity within me had often wondered why I clung so desperately to my will to live. But it was nothing that I found annoying or overly disconcerting. A heavy, rasping breath came from deep within my gut, my dirty hair clinging to my forehead from sweat that refused to trail down along my dirty skin. The only sound aside from my voice was the whirring rotary fan that sat atop a rickety old wooden table situated a few feet away from me. Next to the fan was a single walkie-talkie that, on occasion, came to life with its weak blip noise, and the voice on the other end would ascertain whether or not I was still alive. At some point it had come off as a sick joke to answer that only the dead were down there, but it lost its amusement about the 5th time around. I am alive. But the same could not be said for the bodies lingering the floor of my underground prison. One of my captor's head was completely missing. The blood coagulated around the spine that protruded out from the hunk of meat that remained of his neck. Just around the male's shoulders were hunks of what could only be perceived as crystal or ice. Though the body had only been there for a day, it was already starting to decompose thanks to the stifling heat of the basement. There was little to no moisture in the air, and I may as well have been thrown out in the desert at this rate. As I looked up and to the right, another of my captors was pinned up against the wall just as I was. Or it would have been more accurate to say that he had been impaled into the wall. A long, spear-like object was buried deep within his abdomen, the material translucent like glass. Blood was caked along the glass spear, but none had dripped onto the ground as it normally would have. Where a puddle of blood should have been were merely small droplets of what was assumed to have been sweat from the victim's body. His feet dangled above the ground, shoulders curled forward as his arms drooped down, resembling a puppet whose strings had been cut. There were other bodies in the room, all similar in their states of death. A few limbs blown off here, a body severed in half there. One only had a head to speak of, while his body was an obliterated mess scattered throughout the musky, dimly lit prison that had now been my home for the past day and a half. My captors finally got enough brains to realize that the most efficient way to get me to talk after almost 48 hours was to keep their men as far away from me as possible, starve me, and to make sure that the room was dry and cool enough so that there was constant heat, but not enough to make a person sweat. Soft pounding began at the back of my head, as if to warn me of the impending migraine that was soon to come.
You should rest, Kian. It's been a long day.
No sooner had the voice conveyed such soft words of concern did the heaviness of sleep begin to weigh down on the backs of my eyelids. I hadn't realized it until that moment, but the overwhelming stench, lack of hydration, and lack of sleep was starting to eat away at me. Even holding myself up like this was a task in and of itself.
Yes, sleep. You have endured much for my sake, Kian.
My cracked lips spread into a dejected smirk, causing a tear to rip just below the cleft of my lip. Yet even with the torn skin, blood did not flow. I have done nothing for your sake. Another cough escaped my lungs, my gag reflex in play but releasing no fluids from my bowels. But you have killed to fulfill your own desires. A warped bout of laughter tore through my mind, the sound of the gong bursting forth with such intensity that it seemed like a bolt of lightning had seared my very brain.
Your desire to live is the same as mine.
The darkness was creeping around the corners of my eyes, my vision blurring once more as I soon realized that it would truly only be a matter of time before he took control of my body once more. The fizzle and crack that came from the walkie-talkie was the last thing that I heard before I blacked out completely. It was aggravating, to say the least. Frankly, it just outright pissed me off. How in the hell had I allowed the brat to get this far and without my interference before now? It was insane, really, just how ridiculous the current situation was. Despite all of my poking and prodding, my partner refused to acknowledge my influence except for utmost survival. Other than that, the young man really made his presence known and dominated whenever necessary. Had it really come down to that now? For utmost survival? I felt put out by such a thing. I scoffed, my eyes glaring off in various directions to get a better feel for the room once more. It was all so drab and I was disinterested, but would it curb my boredom in later minutes and seconds? I wasn't so sure, to be quite honest. I pulled at my bindings, the chains rattling with resistance as the slightly rusted cuffs of my shackles dug into my skin. While I was fully aware of the pain, it did little to affect me. My dry tongue made an attempt to give adequate moisture to my horribly dry lips, but that was pointless. My eyes narrowed harshly at my bindings as I attempted to piece together an appropriate plan for our escape.
Have you decided to give up yet? You won't go another day without water in that hot box.
I won't need another day, I said flatly. I turned my head, listening to the voice grunting with displeasure from the walkie-talkie. Whoever that guy was, he was starting to piss me off. Just give me 10 minutes and I'll come up there and drink the blood straight from your eye sockets before skull-fucking the shit out of you.
What the fuck did you just say?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not make myself clear enough for you? My arms grew taut as the muscles pulsed with power, digging into my flesh and ripping through my skin. The soft pitter-patter of blood falling to the floor caused the lips that belonged to my host to smirk. Another tear successfully revealing itself on my bottom lip this time. Again, I twisted my hands against my restraints, pulling and yanking the chains upwards and downwards as more blood began to fall from the wounds growing in size along my wrists. I am going to murder your fucking faces and skull fuck every single one of your corpses, you shit-kicking motherfuckers! Maniacal laughter exploded from deep within my lungs as I lifted my head toward the ceiling. Rushed footsteps and the clacking of rifles could be heard from the walkie-talkie, but they would not be able to kill me no matter how much they wanted to. No matter how many magazines they emptied and no matter how many threats against my life, or my host forbid, his manhood, my victory had been guaranteed. It had been decided the very moment that my own blood slid down into the palms of my hands as my fingers curled into the thick, coppery-smelling liquid that flowed through my veins. When the pads of my fingers had been coated into a decent amount of blood, I smeared what I could along the rough metal of my shackles and my darkness took control, freezing the red liquid instantly, and in a flash my bindings exploded from the sheer pressure of the liquid constricting along the metal. Heavy-booted feet thundered down the steps as I smeared more blood along my other restraint, causing it to freeze and explode. Before my first captor could make it down the steps good, I was racing forward to swipe up the canteen of one of my earlier victims, quenching my thirst and then pouring the water over my body. A gunshot exploded in the room just as my body was freezing the water from head to toe, causing the bullet to bounce off my person and ricocheted off a nearby wall and hitting one of my enemies in the leg, who was following closely behind the first. Seconds ticked by and I curled my shoulders forward, a surge of power rippling throughout my form as spikes of ice covered me completely in the hundreds of various shapes and sizes. And the last thing that they ever saw was the cruel smirk etched on my lips before a hailstorm of ice lances and needles spiraled and rained down upon them. I rolled my neck, the sound of my bones popping echoing softly in my ears as I glared at the vermin on the dirt at my feet. Several were bleeding from the mouth and nose, others were frozen solid, and one remained rolling around in pain. My lip trickled a trail of blood, and a nice cut was just below my left eye. My dirty hair no longer slicked back as it had been a few seconds ago, but all around my face to where I could barely see anything. Not that I needed to. Spitting at the ground, I slowly wiped a thumb across my lip, smearing the trail across my chin as the last remaining of the disgusting roaches I'd beaten to death and into the ground rolled onto his back to look up at me. My victim's glare nowhere near matching my own, but the attempt amused me.
You lousy son of a bitch.
I pushed back a smirk as I cracked my knuckles, water dripping from my bangs due to the ice that had melted thanks to my own grip growing lax on the ions in the water itself.
Think you'll get away with this?
I scoffed, my hair falling across one of my eyes as I narrowed the other. Oh, I don't think, I said, stepping toward the guy and then raising my hand up in the air where water dripped from my fingertips. I know. Curling my fingers into my palm and with a thrust of my fist, I smashed my knuckles into the human's jaw and watched as the water began to mix and fuse with his blood, his body crystallizing from the liquid that was freezing his entire form. Just before the human's lips were completely frozen, he moved them once more.
Who the hell are you? What are you?
I spit again, reached into the bastard's back pocket for his smokes, and popped one into my mouth before lighting the end quickly. I grinned, raising my foot in the air as the man blinked his eyes one last time, the fear clear in their dark depths.
A god.
Letting the smoke exhale out of my nostrils, I slammed the heel of my sneaker into the man's head, crushing it underfoot as chunks of ice and meat exploded in different directions. Sighing, I let the smoke leave my nose and I slipped my hands into my pockets as I stared out the window across the ways on the other side of the room, into the evening sun. It was setting slowly across the horizon, behind the tall buildings and the dark silhouettes of what I had at first assumed to be trees, but soon realized were merely power lines. What a beautiful, blood-red sky. I sighed once more, a look of pleasure spreading across my features as I made my way toward the stairwell of the concrete bunker I was in. So beautiful. My eyes fluttered open and I suddenly realized that I was walking once more, the sound of my feet shuffling through the sand reaching my ears. It was unbelievable to think that my own body had been moving without my mind. Again! Apparently I had needed more rest than my body actually did. A small smile formed on my slightly wet lips as my head bobbed up and down with my steady pace along the golden wilderness. I felt my body rising and knew that I was going up an incline. As I reached this new area, I turned to look in every direction I could. The land was almost completely barren, but there was a riverbed beneath the crag I stood on and a small village several clicks heading off where I assumed to be the northwest. Power lines and wind turbines were scattered here and there, and not a glimmer of game life revealed itself in any way. Was it really so late in the evening? My stomach groaned in protest as the thought of food struck my mind, reminding me that I hadn't eaten or had a thing to drink in nearly 2 days. Or had it been over 48 hours at this point? Yet, my lips were at least moist now. How had that happened? Just my luck, I thought, eyes narrowing in annoyance as I continued climbing up the ledge I was currently on. All this walking and I still don't see jack shit! My feet sunk into the barren land, and with each step I took, the weight of my past grew heavy on my heart. What had forced me to even make that sort of deal all those years ago anyway? For what reason had I shook hands with this thing inside of me? I couldn't even remember anymore, and so I couldn't decide if it had been worth it or not. Was anything worth having to constantly wake up, smelling of blood and death like this? Hungry, fatigued, and heartbroken, I didn't even know if I had the willpower to continue along on my journey. Things were harsh enough that I didn't think living was even worth the effort anymore. So much bad luck had fallen upon me. Sure, life had been hard and I never had a place long enough to call my own, but living should have been enough. Knowing I was still me should have been enough. Right? Suddenly, I collapsed onto the ground, a spray of sand flying in the air as my own body sank into the softness of the warm golden blanket. My stomach groaned again to not being fed, and my legs were numb from the endless walking I had done. Even my body was refusing to cooperate with me due to the days of torture and not being fed or getting any sleep. But my mind was wide awake with all the terrible memories that tore at my brain and heart. I attempted to lift my arm, but it simply trembled in response and then remained still, unmoving. Relenting, I let my head fall as the rest of my body meshed into the soft sand that was cooling from the evening air and roll onto my side. I could feel the sting of my injuries increasing from the grains of sand entering my skin, but I didn't care. I knew I would have to sustain my hunger until I could find food. Desperate, I pulled out the silk handkerchief from my pocket and placed it into my mouth. I began to chew, causing my mouth to water in response as I indulged in satisfying my own thirst with my own spit. My eyes slowly shut as I began to swallow bits of fabric and saliva, the warm liquid traveling down my throat as the sticky wetness attempted to catch in my mouth. I didn't care, for it was my only way to ignore the hunger pangs and a means to chase his laughter away. I could no longer feel the water sliding down my throat as sleep slowly took a hold of me. I could not fight it anymore. He would take over and maintain control again, while I had a moment to rest. I had no way of knowing what acts of cruelty would ensue in his wake, but I didn't have the strength to give enough concern as I knew I should. But at least one thing was certain. I am alive. And dominate.
Whoops, that was my bad at the end. But yeah, okay, so I kind of read through the Pastel Man, and I think that's the one that I'm gonna go with, guys. It's really good. I didn't read all of it though, because you guys know how I am about reading live. I like to read it on the fly, and if there's any mess ups, then oh well. Raptor is currently online. I messaged him. He hasn't messaged me back yet though, so yeah. Please don't cry. Don't do that. I'll start crying if you guys do. But yeah, I just messaged Raptor. He's online. He hasn't said anything to me yet, so I'll just kind of wait, and I'll have the window up in case he says something back to me. But in the meantime, I will start reading the Pastel Man, and if he happens to message me during the story, I'll give him a quick ring and then get him into the stream, if that's okay. Yeah, alright, so with that being said, I'm gonna link you guys to the story, and you can follow along with me as I read aloud. Lily, where are you going? Gonna lay down by my feet? Okay. Alright, so... Okay, he went idle again, so that means he probably just kind of shoved his mouse and went on his way. Alright, let's get some music going here. To find a good one. Consider this a warning. In the event it ever comes to you during a moment of weakness, as it did me all those years ago, say no to the Pastel Man. It doesn't matter how much you love the person that it promises to help, nothing is worth what it wants in return. I tell you this in hopes that you don't make the same mistake I did that cold winter night, kneeling beside my father's writhing body on the living room floor. It
was 1997 when I first encountered the creature, and ever since, not a day has gone by where its awful face hasn't haunted my thoughts. I was a teenager then, but I look at that evening as the night my childhood died, corrupted and violated by a callous hell beast with pale blue skin. Even though it happened years ago, I still remember the events of that fateful first encounter vividly. I could tell you what my father and I were wearing, the toppings on the pizza we were eating, even the score of the football game playing on the TV. It was around halftime when my father's speech started to become slurred, which I found odd since he had been nursing the same bottle of beer since kickoff. Stranger even, I had seen him drink a six-pack to himself in the past without even appearing tipsy, so I was having trouble understanding how a single drink could have such an effect on him. I realized it wasn't the alcohol when half his body went limp and he slid off the couch. I asked him if he was all right, but his words had now become incomprehensible. I grabbed the phone off the coffee table and dialed 911.
911, what is your emergency?
I think my dad's having a stroke. The thought had only crossed my mind a second before the operator answered the phone. Okay, we have your address. An ambulance is on its way. It should be there soon. Is he conscious? Yes, he is, but I can't understand him. Nonsensical jumbled sounds were rambling out my father's mouth. I was afraid. He was all I had. My mother passed away when I was a baby, so I never got the chance to know her, but my dad was always there for me, doing the job of two parents. If I lost him, then I would be alone. That's normal with strokes. It's good that he's awake. And I didn't hear the rest because that's when I dropped the phone. I was having one of those moments where everything faded into the background while my world fell silent. The football game playing on the television, the operator giving me instructions over the phone, even the sound of my father's voice as he wailed in agony on the carpet became white noise, dissolving into the air as I lost all awareness of my surroundings. All of my attention and focus was now on one thing: the horrible abomination that was standing in my kitchen watching my father, and I with a twisted smile across its disgusting face. Its head narrowly missed scraping against our kitchen's 9-foot ceiling as it shifted from side to side, fidgeting with anticipation like a giddy child in class on the last day of school, waiting for that final bell to signal summer vacation. The pastel blue skin that covered its entire body, from the creature's head all the way down to its feet, horrible, grimy feet, looked weathered and wrinkled like leather that had been left out in the sun for days. Hanging off its long, lanky frame was a plain brown satchel with black stitching. It lightly caressed the strap of its pouch with a long finger, but looked on with an eager expression on its face. At first, I thought I had gone mad from the sight of seeing my father have a stroke. But the closer the monstrosity slinked towards us, the more I realized it was no hallucination. It ducked its head under the light fixture in the living room and stepped a spindly leg over the couch. Though the monstrous freak of nature was clearly bipedal, it had moved down to all fours and appeared to be stalking us like some wild animal hunting its prey. I should have been terrified, but the horrible smile on its god-awful face made me feel more anger towards the thing than fear. It was as if it was taking pleasure in my father's misery. Closer still it crept, and I grabbed my father's hand out of desperation in some veiled attempt to protect him. The creature stopped its face mere inches from mine before shifting its attention down to my father. I can save him, if you'd like. I was taken aback. I had prepared for the terrible thing to take a chunk of flesh out of my neck with its teeth or slash me across the face with its black, crusty nails, but speaking to me was the last thing I expected. He's dying, but I can save him, if you'd like. I sat there, mouth agape, cradling my father's head in my arm and staring into the two pink, bulbous eyes that took up more than a third of the foul thing's face. I remember thinking that they reminded me of Easter eggs, a bizarre connection for my mind to make given the situation. It stood back up on 2 feet, and once again, I was reminded just how imposing the creature really was. It told me its name, which I dare not repeat because it also explained that speaking it is the best way to summon the beast. For the remainder of my story, I will refer to this entity as the Pastel Man. Just a name I came up with due to the pigment of its skin and the light shade of pink that was the color of its eyes. That, and for some reason, giving the creature a silly name always helped to make me feel less afraid of it. Not much less, though. Finally, my mind had recovered enough from shock to allow me to stutter out a few words. What do you mean you could save him? What I do is make deals, young man. Its voice was surprisingly angelic, like 1,000 choirs all singing in unison. If one were to close their eyes while the creature spoke to them, they might imagine they were listening to a seraph, not the hideous monster that was sporting a depraved grin in my living room. However, its extraordinary voice only managed to make me feel more uneasy. It wasn't right that something so beautiful would belong to such a repulsive creature. The Pastel Man gestured to its satchel. I have the ability to save your father's life, but you have to agree to a deal with me. What kind of a deal? Everything happens for a reason, even death. Its mischievous smile widened just a bit, as if the creature was getting to the punchline of a joke. It's true that I can save your father's life, but someone must die in his place. One shall die so another may live. That's the deal. I clutched my chest. Not you. What would be the point? No. I'm giving you the option to choose the person who will be replacing your father this evening. I was stunned by what I was hearing. Are you deaf? The Pastel Man threw his head back and let out a terrible howl. It was only later that I would come to realize that was how the wretched thing laughed. No, I'm certainly not the Grim Reaper, although you aren't the first person to ask me that. I'm not the devil either, nor do I work for him. Let's just say I'm an independent contractor, shall we? 2 tiny holes that lied on the center of its face in the absence of a nose flared in satisfaction of its explanation. I can choose anyone? Well, not anyone. That wouldn't be very fun, would it? I could see a row of shark-like teeth hiding in its mouth as it separated its lips to speak. Your father's replacement must be someone else in your life. I'm not a murderer. My voice was tiny, barely escaped my mouth. I looked back down to my father. He had lost consciousness and his skin was becoming pale. And I don't think I could kill anyone I know. You don't have to murder anyone, young man. The sly creature was moving into its final pitch. All you have to do is tell me who it is you want dead, and I will do the rest. Surely there must be someone you wouldn't mind out of your life. A teacher, an ex-girlfriend, a rival at school, perhaps. There was. I had fantasized about it many times, but never in my wildest dreams would I have ever acted on it. Everyone has that person in their life who's toxic, someone who makes getting up in the morning more difficult, and I was certainly no exception. Walter Flanagan, I muttered under my breath. Who? Walter Flanagan. He's the guy at school who gave me this. I lifted my shirt and showed it the handprint-shaped bruise on my chest that Walter had given me during one of his infamous hazing sessions in the locker room earlier that week. He's been shoving me into lockers and beating me up since I was a freshman. The faculty doesn't do anything since he's the best football player in the history of our school. He's a 5-star recruit going to a huge college next year. ESPN even did a piece on him. Ah, the pastel man began to snicker to itself. It somehow widened its already enormous pink eyes even more than crouched back down to get face to face with me again. What fun is being a king without serfs to torment, eh? Well, I'm tired of being tormented, so just go and kill him before I change my mind. The pastel man shot a massive hand out and wrapped its long fingers around my face. The grin that it was wearing since I first laid eyes on it had now been replaced by a scowl. You do not tell me what to do! Are we clear? I nodded sheepishly. The grip it had on my face was so tight. I understood then and there that if it wanted to, the creature could easily snap my neck or crush my skull like an egg. Good. Because it's not so simple, young man. There are steps that must be taken. Steps? Yes. A playful smirk once again returned to the pastel man's face. You will have to be present when this Walter Flanagan dies. In fact, I need you to summon me or else I can't complete my end of the bargain. Get the boy alone and speak my name. You must watch him die by sunrise or else you will be violating the terms of our agreement. So do we have a deal? I nodded again, and the monster released its hold on my face before snatching my hand. Its giant paws swallowed my palm as we shook to cement the deal. Excellent. With this handshake, our deal is binding, young man. I watched curiously as the pastel man reached into its satchel and fumbled around until it found what it was looking for. In between its repugnant fingers, it held a strange-looking insect about the size of a quarter. The bug buzzed its wings in an attempt to flutter away, but could not escape the pastel man's grasp. With its other hand, it pushed down on my father's jaw in order to open his mouth. What are you doing? I asked, but the pastel man didn't answer. It then violently stuffed the insect in my father's mouth, jamming it down his esophagus with its filthy fingers. The pastel man rose once more to its feet. There, the deed is done. Your father will recover in full. Now it's your turn. Remember, the boy dies by sunrise or the deal's off. It turned its back to me and began to slither away. What if I change my mind? I asked. The creature stopped almost mid-stride and twisted around. Again, its smile had been supplanted by an awful sneer. I felt even less safe than when it was holding my face in a vice grip earlier. Your father's health has already been restored, so someone must replace him. One must die so another shall live. That was the deal. If you fail to complete your end of the bargain, then that someone will be you. Believe me when I say this, young man. I don't need to be summoned once our deal has been broken. I will come for you. That is a promise. And when I do, you're going to wish you never crossed me. With that, it continued out the kitchen and through the back door. I chased after it, but by the time I got outside into the backyard, the thing had disappeared. It was then that I spotted the lights of the ambulance as it pulled up across the street from my house. I flagged down the EMTs and led them to my father. It wasn't difficult to find Walter. I knew exactly where he was going to be, but I had completely lost track of time while waiting to hear from my father's doctors in the ICU. I had to hurry to Ellie Gillen's house. Eddie's parents were out of town, and he had been talking all week at school about the rager he was planning to throw. There were two things I knew about Walter. Eddie was his best friend. He never missed a party. It was somewhere around 3:30 a.m. when I pulled my car up to Eddie's. I parked a little ways down the street so I wouldn't be spotted. Because I had gotten held up at the hospital, I feared that I had missed my chance to catch Walter. My concerns were alleviated when I saw his raised pickup truck still parked in the driveway. Another thought crossed my mind. What if Walter had gotten too drunk and passed out? I tried to think of a way to get into Eddie's and get Walter alone long enough for the pastel man to do whatever it was he had planned. Luckily for me, it wasn't too long before Walter stumbled out of Eddie's front door and climbed into his truck. I let out a sigh, having just escaped a potentially challenging problem. He pulled out and I followed behind, staying far enough away so that I wouldn't tip him off. He was drunk. Even from the distance I was tailing him, I could see his truck swerving in and out of its lane. The pastel man's otherworldly voice played itself over and over like a heavenly broken record in my mind. You must watch him die by sunrise. I wondered if I even had the courage to summon the creature again. Seeing it once that night was traumatic enough. Could I really handle looking into its horrible face for a second time? And what about Walter? Even though he was a huge ass, he didn't deserve to die, and certainly not at the hands of that thing. If it will kill you if you don't let it kill him. Just remember, you're doing this for your dad. I'm not sure if it was the little angel on my shoulder or the little devil that was whispering in my ear. I looked out my driver's side window. A pink ribbon lined the horizon, the very first signs of sunlight making its presence known in the dark evening sky. In a couple of hours, morning would arrive, and I would be too late to complete my end of the bargain. I would see the pastel man again one way or another. Walter lived up in the foothills outside of town where some of the wealthier people owned homes. I'd been there once for a school project, one where I did all the work and he ended up taking the credit. We had come to a part of the road leading toward his house that cut through a wooded area. I knew there would be no houses for a stretch, so I decided that was where I would make my move. I sped up until I was tailgating the truck, then started flashing my brights and honking my horn. I was prepared to rear-end him in order to get him to stop driving, but it didn't even take that to get the job done. He must have been panicking. His truck started to swerve violently across the street before running off-road, sideswiping a tree and coming to a complete stop. I pulled up behind him, then hesitated for a moment. A glimpse of the creature's grin flashed through my mind, causing me to shudder. I got out of my car, but left the engine running and my headlights on. "Hey, Walter!" I shouted. Walter's door jerked open and he jumped out the truck to the ground below. Sean the shithead? He was confused, but clearly annoyed. Sean the shithead was the nickname he had affectionately given me on my second week of school. Within a month, he had my entire class calling me it. You think that was funny? I am gonna fuck you up, you little bitch! He stormed towards me with both fists clenched. Again, doubts crossed my mind about whether or not I could pull the trigger. Guilt began to pump through my veins. Walter's life was about to end, and it was going to be because of me. Memories darted through my consciousness. All the after-school beatings I took at the hands of Walter, the pastel man's wicked smile, the look on my father's face as he kicked and screamed on the living room floor. Finally, those words, spoken through that unnervingly angelic voice of that terrible monster. One must die, so another shall live. Walter was moving closer. It was now or never. I had to choose whether or not I would summon the beast before the decision was out of my hands. I shouted the pastel man's real name out in a burst of emotion aimed directly at the star football player. Walter paused for a moment, looking at me in confusion, then recollected himself and proceeded towards me again. The pastel man was nowhere to be seen. For the second time that evening, I wondered if I had gone insane. Could everything that had happened to me that night been in my head? What was real? Was my father even sick? Again, I repeated the thing's name in an effort to summon it, but this time it did nothing to hinder Walter's pursuit of me. He violently shoved me against the hood of my car, grabbed hold of my shirt collar, and spun me around. Walter raised his fist to hit me. I winced and put my hands up in order to prepare for impact, but he never struck me. It only was when I opened my eyes that I realized I wasn't crazy. Walter's face was white. His mouth hung open just as mine had when I first caught sight of the pastel man earlier that evening. I turned my head to see that unmistakable, long, lanky body slink out of the shadows and in front of my car's headlights. Its face still wore that warped smile, and I knew just beyond those thin lips was a mouth full of tiny daggers capable of tearing muscle from bone. Neither Walter nor I said a word. I think I might have been almost as terrified as him. My stomach began to feel sick as the pastel man stalked even closer. I didn't look at Walter's face. How could I? The boy was about to die at the hands of this horrible monster, and it was my fault. I didn't have to summon it. I didn't have to shake its hand. I'm sorry. I truly was, and I still am. I hadn't taken my eyes off the pastel man, but I think it had more to do with not being able to look Walter in the face than fear for my life. Walter said nothing. My car's headlights fell on the creature's face, and now we could both see it clearly. The pastel man's large pink eyes seemed to glow brighter in the light of the headlamps. Walter let go of me and made a break for his truck, but the hell beast pounced on him with a surprising amount of speed and agility that I had not yet seen it demonstrate. His screams were met with only apathy from the creature as it dug those filthy black fingernails into Walter's abdomen. I tried to look away, but the pastel man made sure I remembered our agreement. "You must watch, young man. Don't forget we had a deal." I forced myself to look back at the massacre. The creature's smile had mutilated from mischievous to depraved. It looked as if it was deriving some sort of sick sexual pleasure out of the torture it was pulling Walter through. Deeper still, it burrowed its long, bony fingers into Walter's stomach. With a jerk, the heinous thing yanked out a handful of his intestines and dragged them across the ground as it approached me, flaring those holes on its face that filled in for a nose, and clearly pleased with his handiwork. It's over then? I'm not sure if I was asking or begging the creature as the two of us faced each other in the empty street that night. The pastel man threw his head back and once again let out that revolting howl. Over? We're just getting started. It headed back over towards Walter, who at this point was crawling along the ground, still trying to get to his truck while his innards trailed behind him. The pastel man cut him off and snatched him off the asphalt, easily lifting him by the head with one hand. It toyed with him for a bit, forcing Walter to look into its hideous face. With its free hand, the creature reached into its satchel and pulled out a much bigger insect this time. It was different than the one my father had unknowingly ingested, both in size and appearance. If the bug that the creature jammed down my father's mouth was the size of a quarter, this one must have been as large as a golf ball. It was slimy. The mucus-like membrane that encased its body glistened in my car's headlights. The pastel man dangled the nasty bug in front of Walter's face for a few seconds. Now be a good boy and open your mouth. Walter screamed. That gave the blue beast the opening it needed. It thrust the slimy insect in its mouth and passed his tonsils with its filthy fingers. I watched on as Walter gagged, presumably on the oversized maggot, as it made its way down his throat. Soon he began to turn blue. I could tell he was choking to death, and even though I wanted to save him, there was nothing I could do. A minute later, and the pastel man dropped his lifeless body to the ground. It examined the carnage for a moment, pondering over it as if it was a masterpiece in an art gallery. Then, the demon turned away, retreating back towards the shadows, and disappeared into the night without saying a word. I stood there in the road, looking at the scene and still feeling sick to my stomach for what I just witnessed. I don't know what I expected to happen after the deed was done. There was no explosion, no brilliant light show where I would watch Walter's soul either drag down to hell or ascend upwards towards the heavens. Just a dead boy in the road. A dead boy and his murderer. The pastel man was the gun, but I pulled the trigger. In a way, there were 2 dead boys in the road that evening. I knew that I didn't have time to dawdle. At any moment, a car could come driving down the street and find me standing in the middle of that massacre. I sprinted back to my car and sped down the street towards town. The coroner attributed Walter's death to a drinking and driving accident, although there was understandably a lot of suspicion regarding the odd circumstances surrounding his demise. The autopsy revealed no evidence of the slimy bug that the pastel man had placed in Walter's throat. The town was devastated. I remember a candlelight vigil was held in his honor. A couple of big news outlets covered his death because of Walter's status as an elite college football recruit. My father made a full recovery and just a couple of days after his stroke was released from the hospital. I would go on to graduate high school and meet the love of my life the very first semester at my university. Her name was Diana, and she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. We married shortly after college, settled down, and had a wonderful boy named Matthew. However, I never forgot the hand I played in Walter's death. I have carried that guilt with me since the events of that night. No matter how much I wanted to, I couldn't forget. The pastel man wouldn't let me. It must have seen me as an easy patsy because the creature has come to me again and again every time a loved one has been on the brink of death, offering me the same deal I accepted that first shameful night. Though the creature had been persistent in its pursuit of bloodlust, the image of Walter's gruesome death never left my mind and gave me the strength to say no to its propositions. Even years later, on the eve of my father's passing, I was able to refuse its proposal when the pastel man visited me in his hospital room. I've been cursed to have my soul tested till the day that I die by the pastel man. A test that for years I was able to persevere through until one evening where my life began crumbling down and once more the creature took advantage of me in a moment of weakness. Diana and Matthew were on their way back from the airport after visiting my in-laws. I was swamped at work and had to pull an all-nighter in order to finish a project by its deadline, so my wife hailed a taxi rather than ask me to pick them up. It was around midnight and I was alone in the office when I got a call from the police department. They told me a drunk driver had collided with their cab on the highway coming back from the airport. My wife and the cabbie were killed on impact, and my son was in critical condition. I sat there at my desk, unable to move or formulate a coherent thought. It was then that I realized I wasn't by myself in the office anymore. Perched atop my boss's desk was the pastel man, that abhorrent smile still painted across its nasty, wrinkled face. It didn't need to make an offer. This, I believe, the creature already knew. "Can you save them?" I asked. "Yes and no." "What do you mean? Just spit it out!" The pastel man's smirk disappeared, and I could tell that it was not pleased with my tone of voice. Memories of the vice grip it had on my face the last time I demanded something from the creature bled into my consciousness. Perhaps it realized I was past the point of threats because instead of lunging at me as the creature had done in the past, it decided to clarify its cryptic response. "I cannot pull someone back from death's clutches, only save them before it gets its hold of them. Your wife is dead. Now make your peace with that. Your son's life, on the other hand, can be salvaged. For a price, of course." I racked my mind. I couldn't think of a single person in my life who deserved to die at the hands of that pale blue monstrosity. Even someone as awful as Walter didn't deserve the gruesome fate he'd received that night due to my poor decision. But my son was all I had now, and he didn't deserve to die either. Not because someone else had made a poor decision that evening and got behind the wheel of a car they were too intoxicated to drive. The pastel man's glorious voice filled the room again. I seemed to be hearing it from all directions. The drunk driver that crashed into your family's cab is still alive and in the very same hospital as your son. Why not him? For the first time that evening, I looked into the large pink eyes of the creature. You said it has to be someone I know. Semantics. It just needs to be someone who has directly impacted your life. The moment he drove his car into your wife and son's taxi, he became a candidate. The pastel man flared the tiny holes on its face with glee the way it always did when it was content with itself. Fine, let's do it, I said. I shook its giant hand to make the arrangement official, and with that, the pastel man gave me the instructions to complete our deal. When I met with the doctors at the hospital, they updated me on the condition of my son. We've done all that we can, but he's a fighter. The doctors feigned optimism, but I could see it in their eyes that they didn't expect him to make it through the night. They led me to his room and gave me some time alone with him. The pastel man was already there when I entered, smiling down on his broken body. Quickly, I shut the door behind me and nodded to the creature. It reached a gangly arm into its satchel and pulled out the same type of strange-looking insect it had shoved down my father's throat. I opened Matthew's mouth, and with 2 grubby fingers, the creature crammed the bug deep into his oral cavity. He will make a full recovery. Now, it's your turn. The pastel man waltzed behind the hospital curtain of my son's room. I knew I didn't have to check to see if it had disappeared. If it were to make another appearance at the hospital that evening, then it would be because I spoke its name. When I agreed to the bargain at my office, the pastel man had told me what room the driver was being kept in. His injuries were far less severe than Matthew's, so he was in a different wing of the facility. I could feel my heart pounding as I made my way towards his room. With each step, the beating in my chest grew louder. Already that same feeling of guilt I had felt while I was looking down at Walter's corpse lying in the middle of the road washed over me. I was about to take another person's life. Who was I to decide whether someone deserved to live or die? I felt just as ugly and horrible as the pastel man looked. Maybe I didn't have pointed teeth or wrinkly blue skin, but if I knew that if I went through with our deal, then I was just as big of a monster as it was. I stepped as stealthily as possible through the door, hoping no one would notice me sneak in. As I looked down at the face of the driver lying unconscious in his bed, I instantly felt that familiar sickness in my stomach. He was a boy, no older than Walter the night the pastel man and myself unfairly snuffed out his life before it truly had a chance to shine. Walter could have become someone different when he matured, someone capable of doing real good in this world, but he was never given the opportunity. This driver was just a stupid teenager who made a mistake, one that he'd never get the chance to atone for. I saw Walter in the boy's face, and my stomach began to churn more. I tried to call out the pastel man's name, but I couldn't. Perhaps that little angel on my shoulder wouldn't allow me. I would not be responsible for the death of another boy. Not this time. I refused to pull that trigger. I walked out of his room and didn't look back. I spent the rest of the evening sitting next to my son's bed. The first few rays of morning sunlight snuck into Matthew's hospital room and caught my attention. I peeked out through the blinds and watched the sunrise for the first time since the night Walter died. It was beautiful. The pink ribbon that lined the horizon had bled into the sky, creating a dazzling purple hue. I had my light show, and it was spectacular. I broke my deal with the pastel man, and in doing so, my fate now rests in its filthy hands. hands that it likely plans on burying into my abdomen. On the plus side, my son will recover in full. It will be hard for him growing up without his parents, but he's always been close with his aunt. My wife's sister is a wonderful woman with a caring family. She's his legal godmother and promised us the day he was born that she would always be there for him. Her husband does well for himself, and they've never had a problem with money. The life insurance policy Diana and I took out, combined with the money we had been pulling away for Matthew to go to college, will ensure that there should be no financial issues while he's under their care. It's only a matter of time before the pastel man comes for me. I've accepted that my death is near, but I'm not scared. In a way, I look forward to it. It's almost as if the boy that died within me on that terrible night has been given another chance. When I die, all the guilt and hate that I've had for myself dies with me, wiped away so that my soul can cross over to a new plane of existence, pure and innocent. The way it was before I ever met that monster. One must die, so another shall live. That's what the pastel man said. Oh, wow, that was sad. That was really sad. I forgot. I read that story a long time ago. I just remembered. I did read that story, and I remember how sad it was. And yeah, I don't like endings like that. Kind of reminds me of that story that I read by Henry Galley, The Blood Game, I think. Yeah, it was sad. I was sad. I wasn't a fan. I mean, well, not saying that I wasn't a fan of that, but I don't really like endings like that. It makes me sad. Yeah, so that pretty much sums that up. I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. Yes. So, with that being said, that's it for the stream. Streamed for an hour and 30 minutes, a little over an hour and 30 minutes. But yeah, so I had a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this spur of the moment stream. I know it kind of I kind of dropped it on you guys. I didn't mean to. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for sticking with me and being there for me. And for everyone who came in late, I apologize. But basically, work has been keeping me busy, as well as the fact that I have 2 animals that I've been trying to take care of. So yeah, with that being said, you guys are amazing. Everyone's been talking about me putting merchandise together. I have been doing a few designs. It's just been a little bit, it's just been a little bit insane for the time being. Stop chewing my chair, Lily. That's my dog, sorry. But yeah, so now she's licking my feet. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Oh, okay. So yes, I'm gonna try and do this weekly as I'm putting stuff together for you guys. What's the best way to really describe this? Okay, well anyway, I'm gonna try and do this weekly, if not Saturdays or Sundays. Probably be around the same time every day, or on Saturday, like if I do it on Saturday, it'd be like around 2 o'clock. On Sunday, be around 2 o'clock. Central Standard Time, of course. But yeah. As far as videos go, I'm gonna try and get a video out sometime this week. If not, sometime next week, definitely. I am gonna resume Higurashi again. I should set up a Patreon. I should.
Just so lazy. Not even really lazy, guys. I just don't even know the process of doing that. Like, I'd have to have somebody help me or walk through it or something. I don't know. But yeah, so yes, I'm gonna try and do these weekly, if not every other week. For those of you who were around when I was doing the podcast questionnaire, everyone did say that I should do a podcast, so I'm gonna be going through the process of getting that set up so that you guys could download it like via iTunes or Google Play or something like that, so you can carry around with you via mobile and listen to the stories that you enjoy. I am going to put old stories via MP3 onto the podcast as well. And then I'm going to discuss some of the topics that I listed on the poll for the podcast event. So I don't know if I'm going to stream the podcast live as I record it and then post it up. I don't know. Yeah, it will be fun. I'm going to try and have a few guests come in. Finch, if you would like to join me on one of the sessions that I'm recording sometime, that'd be awesome. I'll try to get Raptor involved as well. And a few other voice actors that I know, as well as a few other writers. And we'll just go over some things like voice acting 101. We'll go over like video gaming, writing techniques, and of course I'll read stories. It won't necessarily be on iTunes. I'll probably post it on iTunes and have it put on Google Play for those of you who are Android users for the podcast. And I'll also have somewhere where you can download it. I just have to get all that stuff set up. Apparently it takes like an hour or two to set up everything when it comes to a podcast. I'll probably have to get in touch with Mr. Creepypasta and see how he does it, as well as Creeps, because they're friends of mine, and I'll just be like, hey, could you help me out? That'd be great. Yes, Blue Lava 6, of course. I would definitely love to have him on the show as well. I don't know what the process is to get on Spotify podcast. If there's a way for me to do that, I definitely will do that. I'll have to see what the paperwork is regarding getting on Spotify podcast. But if I can get it on Spotify, that'd be great. And doable. We'll go from there. But in the meantime, again, thank you guys so much. You've been amazing. And I appreciate you more than I could possibly ever describe. Thank you so much for everyone who stuck with me from the beginning of the stream. For those of you who missed it, please go back and re-listen, comment, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys all in the next stream. And I will see you in the next video. I miss you guys so much. Thank you for all of your love and support. I love you guys. So everybody take care. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And until next time, bye!